Welcome back to another episode of the Cycle Podcast, a show where we cover 4 trending MLB topics in 20 minutes or less. Joining me this week is Zack, back for a second episode. Reviews were just outstanding, so we had to bring you back on. Today we're going to be talking a little bit of Phillies. Why is the American League so weak? Who's hot? And we have some predictions from our own Zack. How are you doing today, buddy?
Doing all right. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It was awesome last time. I was looking forward to coming back on, and we're here again. Let's get rocking and rolling.
Let's get right into it. Our first topic is going to be another panic level. So far, we've covered the Mets. We've covered the Rays' confidence level. And we're going back to the National League to talk about the Phillies. And I'm going to set their panic level at a yellowish orange. Obviously, some good things recently. They move on from a head coach. They bring in Don Mattingly, and they're 11-3 cents. However, they are still 10 games behind Atlanta and 5 games out of the wild card. There are some encouraging numbers. Since bringing in Don Mattingly, they are leading the MLB in batting average and slugging percentage. Their runs scored per game is up. However, they are 4-12 against teams over 500, and those are teams they're going to have to beat if they want to claw their way back into contention. They have a negative run differential of 33. Not good. The second half of their bullpen, behind Zack Wheeler and Christopher Sanchez, you've got Aaron Nola at a 5 ERA, Jesus Luzardo at a 5.6, and Andrew Painter at a 6.2. Of those, Painter's the most concerning to me. This is a guy that they expected to come in and be their third or fourth starter, and right now he's looking like a fringy MLB starter at best. Their bullpen, outside of Duran, very below average. They're 26th in opponent batting average altogether. And their offense, probably the most concerning thing for me, coming almost primarily from Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, and Brandon Marsh. And on top of all of that, the National League is outstandingly strong this year. So unlike the American League, which we're going to talk about on our next topic, it's very difficult to just kind of chip away at a deficit like they have, especially in the National League where you have some really young, scrappy teams like the Reds and the Pirates sort of on the come up there. So, Zack, my question for you is, one, how panicked are you with the Phillies? And elaborate a little bit. Do you see them clawing their way back into contention in their division, or do you see them making a push for a wild card at all?
Yeah, I would say kind of where you're at too. It's almost in a yellow or almost like an orange meter. I mean, I feel like when you think of the National League in the past few years and a lot of their heavy hitters, so to speak, I mean, the Phillies are looked at in that upper echelon. I mean, obviously you have teams coming out now, like you have the Cubs and like you said, the Pirates on the come up. I feel like the Phillies kind of just haven't clicked yet. And it's still early in the season. I mean, we're still in May. We still haven't really seen too much out of it, but like now is where you need that push off from those guys like Harper, Schwarber, and everything. But I feel like the supporting cast, the rest of the team, the Bryson Stotts and the Trey Turners and everything to really solidify them and bring them all together. Not to mention, obviously, you spoke about their rotation, their bullpen. I feel like it's just they haven't clicked yet. So I would say not too panicked right now, but I feel like they're kind of on the verge of it, right? Like you said, they are starting to turn things around, but they still haven't hit that stride yet. And I feel like if they continue the trajectory that they're going on now with Don Mattingly and with the changes they've made, it could be going up. But if we're seeing what we saw more in the beginning of this season, it could be kind of a rough road into the All-Star break and maybe down the stretch for them.
Yeah. And with them, me and Josh talked about this over the summer, how it almost feels like, let's get the boys back together one more time. They bring Schwarber back. Trey Turner and Harper are starting to get older. Some of their pitching staff starting to get up there in years. And if it's not this year, it's not at all. And if they get to the All-Star break, like you said, and they haven't really gotten that big push to where they're fighting with Atlanta to be atop of their division, I can see them starting to sell off some of their pieces and maybe try to solidify a future beyond Harper, Schwarber, Zack Wheeler, and that. But it's so early in the season, and we know they've got some dogs on that squad. I expect Jesus Luzardo to figure things out. Like I said, the weak link might be Andrew Painter. He might be a guy we see back in AAA at some point this year to maybe work out some of the kinks. I haven't watched enough of him to be able to say what the issue is. but they've got a good pitching staff there. They have a decent coaching staff. We'll see if they can get him back on track, maybe pick up some wins for that team. But with that,
Yeah.
let's move right in. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. And I was gonna say, like, I feel like it's tough too for like the whole NL East altogether, right? I feel like we were talking about how the NL is starting to really pick up. I feel like the NL East is tough because like the only team that's above 500 in that whole division are the Braves. I mean, you have the Nationals aren't doing great. Unfortunately, the Mets are obviously on their skid. I feel like the NL East as a whole is kind of like in a slump because if you look at the numbers, the Braves are the only team that are above 500 in that division. And I would say the concern level for that division as a whole, unless you're in Atlanta, is pretty high.
Oh, yeah. And Atlanta looks good. Our second topic today is why is the American League so bad? With so many legacy teams, so many teams that made big moves this offseason, like the Orioles, like the Blue Jays, like the Red Sox, we're only seeing 4 teams above 500. 2 of them, of course, the Yankees and the Rays, look like legitimate contenders. We talked about the Rays level, confidence level last week, but then you have the A's and the Guardians. And to me, the Guardians are a product of a bad AL Central, sort of a bad schedule merchant. And then the A's, long term, I'm not a believer in. We've seen some really good things from them. And I've got their manager, like we talked about on our last episode, as the American League Manager of the Year. Because outside of Kevin Cash, I don't see anybody that's super deserving of that. The Yankees, to me, are the only complete team in the American League. The Rays don't have enough power. Their pitching staff, while it looks good on paper, if you dig into some of their metrics with their opponent batting average, with some of their exit velocity allowed, I think they're a team that gives up way too much hard contact. So I see a situation where the Yankees could just blow through the American League and go into the World Series on a little bit of rest. Now, the caveat to that is that the Rays play the Yankees really well. I don't see anybody else who's going to take them down in a 7-game series. You'd have to catch them in the wild card round or in the divisional round where it's a 5-game series, and you sort of just luck your way into a win or two against them. Because when Garrett Cole is back 100%, with him, Max Fried, Cam Schlittler, that's a rotation that I think could just shut down and get you 3 to 5 wins in a short series just on their own. So, Zach, you're a New York guy. You're an American League guy. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on the weakness of the American League?
I think it's weird because, like, in the National League, you have teams like the Cubs and obviously the Dodgers and like the runaway favorites. I feel like the American League, there's a lot of really great teams, but like they're not playing really great baseball, if that makes sense. And I feel like there's not a lot of runaway teams, so to speak. I mean, the Guardians you were talking about, I think they're only 3 games above 3 games over 500 or something like that. And like that's the one of the larger winning percentages in the league. And you have a team like the Yankees, who I love to talk about and I love, obviously being a fan of, but I have to, look at it and say there's holes in their game. I mean, obviously their bullpen, you win 15 out of 17 games and even I think they won 16 out of 18. And, they looked really great, but their bullpen cost them a few games. I mean, the Yankees won on a 4-game skid. And I feel like too many teams in the American League have that hole, right? A definitive hole. And I feel like that's kind of what's separating them. I feel like the National League has a little bit more pop, and I feel like there's more separation. Whereas you have teams that are doing well in the American League that nobody really expected. And I feel like that all of a sudden kind of shakes up the American League. I would say it's kind of a hot take, but I feel like the American League not being as good could make it more interesting. Because you have a team like the A's that we know in the past 10 years or so, the A's haven't really been competitors. They haven't really done anything. And I feel like I don't think that they're going to do too great to where they're going to make a playoff push. But I do think that they could mix things up. Teams like the A's, I feel like the AL Central could get tighter because that's always, a competitive division. And I feel like, the East too, I feel like a lot of people expected a lot of teams like the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, and they just haven't really delivered as much. Excuse me. And I feel like with there not being as much separation, it's, I feel like it's a downside for the American League anything could happen. Exactly. Down the stretch, I mean, unfortunately, as a Yankees fan, we're entering June soon. June is typically the worst month of the year for some reason that the Yankees play. So I guess we'll see how that does. But I feel like that could play a big part in it.
Last question on the American League. Of the teams who were expected to be good, let's say the Rangers, the Mariners, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Orioles, who do you think is going to be the biggest buyer and benefit from how tight the American League is of teams that are just struggling to stay at 500?
I'd say probably the Rangers. I feel like a lot of their team and a lot of their focus is built around those players like the Jacob deGroms and the Corey Seagers. And I feel like as those players get older, their window is shrinking. And obviously you're going to want to do your best for them, get your rings for them and whatnot. I feel like the Rangers are probably going to be a team that's buying. And I feel like, we're going to see almost a passing of the baton. They're going to look for that identity, almost like you were saying with the Harper and the Schwarbers for the Phillies. I feel like the Rangers are going to kind of look for that identity or that key player to build around, so to speak, because, DeGrom, Hall of Fame caliber pitcher. Obviously, we all know that. But I feel like they really want to give him another push and, be able to get him a ring, get Corey Seager a ring and put them in that conversation.
I would agree. I was going to say between them and the Blue Jays, and I think you probably hit the nail on the head. They have more incentive to go out and spend some money this All-Star break trade deadline. Like you said, to get those guys some help, so you're not looking at a situation where one of them inevitably misses a stretch and you fall way out of the division. So great answer. We appreciate you. Let's move on to our third topic. Zack, since we have you on here today, we're going to have you do a prediction from the National League and a prediction from the American League. So since we're just coming off of a topic about the American League, let's stick there. What is your American League thought?
So my American League thought, I think the White Sox can make a playoff push. And that sounds very crazy, especially in May. This is a team that won 60 games last year. They went 60 and 102. I mean, this is just, it's disgusting. And I feel like the additions that they've made and what they've done, complete different team than we saw last year. I mean, you take a look at, Munetaka Murakami alone. This is a guy that, was scouted by scouts and they said he can't hit a fastball above 93. And he's just been raking. I feel like that plus, I feel like they have a lot of young talent too. I feel like, maybe even their farm system. The White Sox are a team that I did not think in May that I would be saying, they could be making a playoff push. I mean, this time last year, what did they have? 4 or 5 wins. And I feel like they've really turned things around in the year. And to put it in football terms, I know we're talking baseball. It reminds me almost of the Jaguars.
Yes.
They brought in Liam Cohen and they went from 3-14 to 14-3 or something like that. And that's just kind of what I think of with this team. I feel like the White Sox really have potential to make it far. I don't know how deep in the playoffs. I don't know if they can make the playoffs, but I think they can go for that second or third wild card spot if they keep it up.
Yeah, they can. They can. In a weak division. And if you look at their roster, they have guys like Drew Romo, Miguel Vargas, Derek Hill. They have Jordan Hicks on the roster. So many guys where you say they were big names at one point who just didn't pan out. And the White Sox said, we'll take a chance on everybody. And they're getting contributions from some of these dudes. Like you said, Munetaka Murakami is a franchise cornerstone. Colson Montgomery is a franchise cornerstone. And they're just getting enough contributions from guys like I mentioned. And then your Eric Fetties, guys who are supposed to be just sort of middle of the order dudes or middle of the rotation guys, front end of the bullpen talent, bench bats that they're getting like everyday contributions from, and super weak AL Central. They're in the process right now of sweeping the Royals. I've got the game on. They're beating us 5-1. If they just keep clawing at it, it gives them a reason to say, let's bring up some dudes from the farm system. Let's maybe make a move and just try to put ourselves in that wild card contention. So, no, I don't think it's crazy at all. I think that's actually a very, very possible outcome in this American League, in this Central Division. Let's move on to your National League, though.
I think the Cubs, I don't know if this is a bold prediction, but I think the Cubs win the National League Central. I feel like they're just so hot right now. I mean, I don't have it up in front of me, but let me see. They're 6-4 in their past 10, so it's not as great. But I feel like they're just so great. I feel like they're a definitive winner of the NL Central. I
Yeah.
mean, you had teams. I was just on a few weeks ago. I spoke about the Brewers, how I thought they were a sneaky team. I mean, they're a ways ahead of the Brewers. I think they're 2 or 3 games ahead of the Brewers. I feel like the Cubs are one of those teams that a lot of people expect in the beginning to come out hot, and then down the stretch, I mean, you look at PCA last year, right? PCA had a phenomenal MVP caliber start to the season, and down the stretch, just it didn't carry over. So I think,
Yeah.
if they can continue this momentum, and if PCA can stay hot, if the rest of the team can stay hot, I think this is another team that not only can obviously make a playoff push, but I think they could win, the NL Central in a pretty stacked division where every team is above 500 right now.
Yeah. And you look at that division they're in, everybody minus the Reds has a positive run differential. The Cubs' big calling card is that they just beat everybody at home. They're 18-5 at home. They're 9-11 on the road. So, and what did they went on a stretch where they won like 16 in a row at home? And no, that's maybe not a bold prediction, but my view of the Cubs has been the team that can't put it together down the stretch. So if your take is that they will put it together down the stretch and they will continue playing at a high level after the All-Star break, when the lights get a little brighter, when the pressure's on, can some of their young talent like PCA put together a full season? And if all those are yeses, I don't see a reason they can't win the National League. The Dodgers looking like they're on a bit of a down year. And for the Dodgers, a down year, they're still one of the best teams in baseball. But they're not winning their division currently. They are second to the Padres on a tiebreaker. You have Arizona not too far out in that division. But the National League is just going to be a freaking circus down the stretch. We're going to have teams that are in first place in the division one week, they're third place in their division, out of the wild card the next. And that's the kind of baseball I love to see, baby. I don't like to know what's going to happen halfway through the season. But with that, let's move on to our third and final topic, and everybody's favorite topic, who's hot. So with who's hot, I'm going with one of objectively my least favorite players, which I try not to do, but for the sake of the show, I've got to give flowers to the guys who deserve it, and it's Byron Buxton. In the month of May alone, 7 home runs, 12 RBIs, 3 steals, 15.8% K rate, which in modern baseball, not bad. 783 slug. And this is a guy I've got to fit into who's hot early in the year because he never plays more than 135 games in a season. So who knows how long we've got this guy for. But on a Twins roster that is so bad. 20-24, better than my Royals. But he is carrying them offensively. And Buxton is one of those guys where you say he's an elite 5-tool talent of our generation if he can stay on the field. Did a better job of it last year. If he puts together a full season, he's a legitimate MVP candidate. But on a team where you've got other guys like Royce Lewis who can't stay healthy. And I'm not saying the Twins could be dangerous, but they do have a guy in the middle of their order in Buxton who can carry a squad for a stretch of 10 to 15 games at a time, similar to Judge when he gets hot, similar to Bobby Witt when he gets hot. And we've said this over and over. I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but it is anybody's division in the Central. And a team like them who sold off so much at the deadline last year, they have some of those pieces they brought in. They have some farm system talent. And I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility for them to flip some of those pieces back into more major league ready type of talent, especially some pieces from the Mets who are going to be blowing this thing up here, and try to make a push in that Central. And it is sort of contingent on the health of Byron Buxton. If he goes down, if he slumps, I don't think the team has the motivation to say, hey, maybe we can take a shot at making the playoffs this year. Zach, I'll turn it over to you for your homer pick.
Yeah, I feel like I got to go with Cam Schlittler. Cam, and it's going to sound very biased, Cam has really elevated the Yankees bullpen. I mean, for a team that before this season, I was kind of, semi-panic because we don't have Rodon. We don't have, Garrett Cole or anything else. I feel like Schlittler has really picked up and grown into that role, and he grew into it quickly. Obviously we saw in his start against Boston last year in the playoffs, nobody knew what to expect. And I mean, you're talking, I think he pitched like 6 or 7 innings of just shutdown baseball. Right now, I think he holds the best ERA in the American League. It's like a 1.35 or something like that only,
Yeah,
but
five
I
and
think it's
one.
also notable, or 1.51. I think it's also notable that I think he's second in the MLB only behind Otani.
Yeah.
So this is a guy, he's still young. I mean, I think he's in his sophomore year, and I don't even think you can call it that because he didn't even pitch a full year last year. So I'm really have him as who's hot for me just because he's just been shut down. I mean, he's one of those guys that once he's on the bump, I mean, you can just expect a great game out of him. I don't know how long that's going to carry. I mean, I hope it carries on for a long time, but he's one of those guys that he's really come out in all of his past few starts. I mean, we have him starting tomorrow, and obviously I'm looking forward to that. But he's just been so dominant on the mound.
Yeah, he's like I said, you were right. 1.3 or 1.35, 5-1 record, 9 starts. He's gone 53.1 innings, meaning he's going deep enough into games. 59 strikeouts in those 53 innings with a 0.81 whip. So yeah, he's looking like a bona fide ace. And you've got two of those guys. Because I think Max Fried, granted, he's been banged up. Max Fried's a legitimate ace. You've got two of those. Garrett Cole comes back healthy. You've got three of those. And like we were saying in our American League segment, having three legitimate arms that you can count on to win a game every time they go out is crucial in the playoffs, especially in a World Series where you can get away with going those three, fill in with somebody, and then run
Even a
those three
bullpen
back.
game.
Yeah, a bullpen game. Like you said, you've got some guys who are out. They come back. They can give you a start or two in each series. Yankees could be a dangerous team. And like you said, the bullpen is their only major deficit. And that is something they can absolutely fill because dudes are always trying, or teams are always trying to unload some extra bullpen arms in exchange for prospects, especially those guys who are on 1 or 2 year deals, like a lot of bullpen arms are. But with that, Zach, thank you so much for hopping on this week. We appreciate you giving us your time. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Leave us a comment. If you have any questions you want us to address on our next episode, Josh, you have anything to add? I said Josh. I mean, Zach, do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to say thank you so much again. Always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the next one. And yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe, whatever you're watching it on, and stay tuned for more.
We'll see you next time.